Hello guys, welcome to Easy Bio. Today's lesson is going to be on diffusion. I touched a little bit on diffusion in my previous video, the cell membrane, which I will leave in the description down below. So, to recap, what exactly is diffusion? Diffusion is the movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. This is a really important phrase, and so you will need to embed that into your memory as much as possible. The process of diffusion will only stop when 50% of each molecule is on both areas. This is just because of the random movement of the molecules. Now, that's the end of the recap. Let's now talk about what I'm sure has been on your mind. Why is diffusion important? Fusion is necessary because it allows our bodies to take in substances that are needed, such as oxygen, and get rid of the ones that aren't, needed, such as carbon dioxide. These substances enter the cell through the cell membrane, and unneeded ones exit the cell membrane through diffusion. An example of that is shown here. If you can look at the diagram, you will see that the carbon dioxide is exiting the cell through diffusion. And remember, you breathe out carbon dioxide. If you remember in my last video, I talked about a little bit about facilitated diffusion when it came to glucose molecules. And so let's learn a little bit about what facilitated diffusion is. Facilitated diffusion is a type of passive transport. Basically, what happens is that the proteins bind to the glucose molecules, which causes the proteins to change shape. And this then allows the protein to transport the glucose from one end of the cell membrane to the other. And this doesn't require energy. And so that's why it's still passive transport. That's all you really need to know at this point. If you want to find out more about facilitated diffusion, I will put a link in the description box down below for more information on facilitated diffusion. Now, let's talk about osmosis. Osmosis is essentially just the diffusion of water. The definition you need to remember, though, is that the osmosis is the movement of water molecules from a high concentration to a low concentration through a selectively permeable membrane. Selectively permeable membrane is extremely important in this definition. So here's an example of osmosis and diffusion. If you look at the picture, you will realize that there are two types of molecules in the beaker, sugar and water molecules. So through the artificially selective permeable membrane, the sugar molecule will travel via diffusion and the water molecule will travel via osmosis. However, they won't travel at the same speed. Why? That's because sugar molecules are bigger than water molecules. This allows the water molecules to pass through the selectively permeable membrane faster than the sugar molecules. Osmosis is a process that can affect the shape and size of animal and plant cells. Let's take a look at animal cells first. If red blood cells were put in a solution with the same concentration as the cytoplasm, no change will take place. The red blood cell will remain the same shape and size. Why? Well, remember previously I said that diffusion will not happen if there is equal concentration. That is also the case for osmosis. The red blood cell will not change shape because there is no water coming in or out of it. If a red blood cell was put in a solution with a higher concentration, meaning less water, than the cytoplasm, the red blood cell will shrink and shrivel. That's because, through osmosis, the water molecules will naturally gravitate to side where there is less water. In this case, the concentrated solution, causes the red blood cell to become skinnier and shrivel up. The same story applies to the other way around. A lower concentration of the solution, meaning more water, than the red blood cells causes it to swell and burst. This is because there are more water molecules outside the cell than inside the cell, which can cause osmosis to occur, leading to red blood cells swelling up and bursting if left in the solution for long enough. Now for plant cells. Similar things happen to plant cells as well. The animal cell, plant cells in the solution with equal water concentrations will not have any changes. Again, like the animal cell, more water outside the cell causes the more water to move into the cell. The cell becomes turgid. However, the cell doesn't swell and burst like the animal cell. Instead, it also swells, but doesn't burst. It becomes Turgid. Less water outside the cell causes the water to move from the cell. Unlike the animal cell, the plant cell doesn't shrink and shrivel. It becomes plasmolysed as the cytoplasm shrinks from the cell wall. These processes happen because of the cell wall. If you watched my cells video, I explained that whilst plant cells have a cell wall, animal cells do not. The absence of the cell wall is what causes the animal cell to burst or shrivel. So where does active and passive transport come into play? Well, diffusion and osmosis are types of passive transport. Remember, passive transport doesn't require energy, and so diffusion and osmosis don't require energy. To help you remember this, think of a hill. Diffusion and osmosis move from high concentration to low concentration. If you're walking from a hill or to a low place from a high place, it's not really going to take a lot of effort or energy. However, if you're climbing from a low place to a high place in a hill, you will need a lot of energy. And that's what active transport is. Active transport is a movement from an area of low concentration to high concentration. That requires energy, and that is why active transport requires energy. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope you learned a little bit more about diffusion and the different transports. My previous videos will be in the description, so feel free to check them out. Please like and subscribe as well as comment for more videos. Bye!